A wonderful morning to our viewers across the world. It's Ayo Adams on the sports segment of the weekend show. And, it's been an exciting week with football across the FIFA Women's World Cup, but particularly, our own very own Super Falcons debuted at the FIFA World Cup for the ninth time. They're the only African team who have played at the edition of the FIFA World Cup for nine consecutive times, So, but then we had our opening game against Canada, a team, the reigning Olympic champions, and a team who had, some really, really brilliant players. But our girls came up with a goalless draw, but with a spectacular performance, namely a couple of players, in Chiamaka Nandozie and, Deborah Biodwan, and a couple of more players there, who had some really spectacular outing there. But I'm joined from Canada by with Ayoti Ogala. He's calling us right from Canada, and he will be giving us his insights on how these games were prepped, how the game started, and how the game fared the debutants, and how on the overall performance. Then we'll preview the upcoming matches. I'm joined live from Canada, Ayoti Ogala. He is a sports marketer and also the founder of Eagles Tracker Nigeria. We are at the home. Where is the home of Nigerian football? Good morning, Ayo. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, then. Ayo, you know what? Let's get straight into it. I know that you have a lot of ties and partnership with the Super Falcons. So far, you've been giving us live feeds and live updates from Australia and New Zealand as best as you can. But let's go straight ahead and access the debutants from this competition. We have a number of brilliant debutants in this competition. We have Ashley Plumter, who played from the left back. We also had Deborah Abiodun, who also played too. She was one of the most spectacular players on that day. First of all, give me your fair assessment on the debutants.
Yes, honestly, I was quite pleased with the performance of the debutants in the game against Canada. I'll start quickly by talking about the youngsters that debuted in that game. Blessing Demain, fantastic young defender. She's only 21 years old, playing now in France, and I was a bit worried about how she was going to be able to live up to the expectation, on a big stage like that. But it was pleasing to see that she came up big when she needed to. She was quite composed throughout the 98 plus minutes on the field. And towards the end, when we were hit on the counter-attack, she made a very, very important tackle to save us that 1 point in the game. So kudos to her. I also look at Christy Uchebe making her World Cup debut at 22 years old in the midfield. She covered every blade of grass on the pitch. She was fantastic, winning interceptions, winning tackles, and, very pleasing performance from her wearing that heavy number 10 jersey, of the Super Falcons. And then, of course, Deborah Abiodun as well, despite getting that red card, towards the end of the game, I think in the time that she was on the field, she showed herself to be a very future, quality future player.
Yes.
She was quite composed, she was making some of the right decisions, made one or two bad passes, but, that could be expected. Even the biggest stars in the world can make bad passes sometimes.
Yeah.
So I was pleased with how the youngsters held up. And then, of course, some of the older players also making their debuts, like Ashley Plumter, Michelle Alozie, and even Ifeoma Onumonu, who, has been subject to a lot of criticism from Nigerian fans. A lot of people didn't think that she even deserved to be in the team, but she played from the left wing, which also surprised some people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she ended up getting our only shot on target in the game, to be honest.
I think Uche Nakano also did, but it was deemed an offside position.
Yes. Uche Nakano's zone was from an offside position. So I was honestly quite impressed by the people that made their World Cup debuts. Tony Payne as well.
Yeah.
So it was overall a good one for the Nigerian ladies,
I
must say.
All right, then. I think I must agree with you to that. The number of players you called, Christy, Ashley, Payne, and Abiodun, they really, really gave their best, and then they showed up big. I mean, it's the World Cup. It's not one of the biggest. It's the biggest competition to play for any footballer. They dream about playing it. So we can at least give a little bit of pass for some of them who made silly mistakes. But let's go to the player who was the standout player. Her name was sung across everybody's mouth. The praises to Chiamaka Nandozie was nothing but spectacular, and not debuting at the moment. She's made her debut a couple of times, and then she's also played wonderfully well for her club side. But how would you rate her performance? Stopping that penalty from one of the top players in women's football and doing it brilliantly, and then just also still capitalizing on some of the other encounters across the game, leading from the back. How would you assess Chiamaka Nandozie's performance?
I think it was a fine performance by Chiamaka Nnadozie. Well deserved the Player of the Match award. Not only did she save the penalty, she also made two other good saves that she needed to make. And I think another thing that I was quite impressed, with was how she was able to command her box. From the set pieces that the Canadians had, when she needed to come out and make punches, she came out, she imposed herself. Even sometimes she was clashing into her teammates.
Yeah.
But all that mattered to her was that she was going to punch that ball away and make sure that she was, securing the goal for us. It was a proper captain's performance. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's now probably the first or maybe second Nigerian goalkeeper to keep multiple clean sheets at the World Cup, with the last one that she kept in 2019 when she became the youngest ever goalkeeper of any country to keep a clean sheet at the Women's World Cup. So at only 22 years old, Chiamaka is really making a name for herself. I've always held the opinion that right now she's one of the best goalkeepers in women's football, period, no matter who you're talking about. And I'm happy that, she was able to show herself. And ultimately, she saved us and got us that 1 point that we needed against Canada. So fantastic performance by Chiamaka.
Fantastic performance. I mean, she also got plaudits. She also got, reasonable mentions. And, Nigerians, as usual, Nigerians, once we see someone who gives their best on the pitch of play, we throw our support back to her. Now, let's move to another interesting discussion. The Deborah Abiodun got red carded, for a bad tackle that was reviewed by the VAR, and she was sent off that, which means she will not be participating in the upcoming matches against Australia and Ireland. But we are going to have Rasheedat Ajibade and Halima to return into the fold of the game. How do you think Coach Randy Waldrum will fit them in? And possibly, what kind of impact do you think these two brilliant young women will make while making their return back into the first team? For those who don't know, they were yellow carded, or they were red carded, and they got cautioned during the WAFCON, so that preceded into the FIFA World Cup. But they are returning for match day 2 and match day 3. How do you think they're going to fare, and how do you think they're going to impact the team moving into the remaining encounters?
Yes, I'll start by saying, the interesting thing is that had Alimatu Ainde been able to play in that game, we might not even have seen Deborah Abiodun, and we might have missed out on that fantastic performance that she was able to put in, and good show that she showed for herself. But ultimately, I expect Ainde to slot into the team quite nicely. She's a veteran player. She's played multiple times for us, and she's done really well for Nigeria. What I think she would offer is she would offer Christy Uchebe, who probably will be her midfield partner, an opportunity to play a bit more of a box-to-box role. And she doesn't necessarily have to be the main person sitting in front of the defense trying to win tackles and interceptions. And Christy will be able to offer some attacking support, and hopefully that helps us become a bit more creative. And with Rasheedat coming back as well, Rasheedat is without any doubt one of the best players on our team, one of the biggest threats, and a player that our opponents will have to pay attention to whether they like it or not. I think it would also help Asisat Oshoala to have some freedom in the game, because now all the attention cannot just be on her, and she cannot get boxed out or tackled out of the game, essentially. Rasheedat is a very pacey player, tricky player. She's clever. She can cross the ball. She can score goals as well, as we saw. She was the highest goal scorer for her club in the league last season. So I'm really believing that it would help us to be able to play potentially a more expansive style. We wouldn't have to sit back, at all times like we apparently did against the Canadians. And hopefully we're able to go out there and get, positive result against Australia and even Ireland in the third game as well.
All right, the nice assessment there about the return of Rasheedat and Halima back into the fold. But finally, Ayo, before we round this segment up, there was a tweet from Deborah Abiodun just before we came on air. I wanted to preview that. She stated, it's a dream come true to start in my first senior FIFA Women's World Cup match. I'm happy and honored by the privilege. I'd be disappointed by my debut to end the way it did. I'm sorry. Overall, I'm grateful for the chance and proud of my team today. Thanks for the support always. Hashtag DA13, hashtag NJ. That's remarkable from youngster that, playing her heart out and still coming, to the social media to tell the fans that, regardless, I'm really sorry for taking that record, but we're happy. We're happy you took one for the team. Finally, we are playing Australia and we are playing Ireland. These are teams who are in the top 30 of world football. Australia, without Sam Kerr, And but then, you can't take away some other brilliant players that they still have in their fold. What do you think we can do? You just mentioned about the impact of Ajibade coming in, improving the attack. She's a really brilliant player. But what should we expect against Australia and Ireland? And how do you think we can set up to win this game?
First of all, I think we need to expect a very difficult match against strong opponents. The Australian side is very talented. Yes, they'll be without their best player, in Sam Kerr, but I think they still have quality in their squad. The likes of Haley Russell, the likes of Stephanie Catley, and their defense is quite decent as well. They have Katrina Gorey in their midfield, who is also a good player. It is going to be an intense battle. They are going to try to play quality football against us. So I think it is honestly going to be something that we will have to give them some respect, and defend well, defend in numbers. And that's another reason why I'm happy with Rashida Ajibade returning to the side, because not only is she an effective attacker, she's also one that really likes to work for the team, and she'll be tracking back and trying to help. But ultimately, what we can take advantage of is our pace, and our counter-attacks. If we're able to make good use of the ball, and like I said, with Christy Uchebe now being able to play box-to-box because Ainde will be back in the side, we can attack them in numbers. We can take advantage of the possessions that we do get. I think we can actually get a positive result. And then looking at Ireland as well, I think Ireland is probably on paper going to be the easiest game that we have. But what we cannot take for granted is that as we're looking at Ireland as probably our easiest game, realistically, Ireland will also be looking at Nigeria as probably their easiest game. And they will know that they have to give everything as well to try to get 3 points. So it's going to be an interesting one. Depending on how the second games unfold, if Ireland happen to lose their second game against Canada, then essentially they'll be coming into that match already, out of the tournament. So it could be a very interesting encounter. If they're already out of the tournament, would they bench some of their best players to give other players a chance in the team? We have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, we cannot take anything for granted. The Irish side, they have some quality in their squad, but I think their biggest attribute, honestly, is their effort and their heart. They play really hard. They are going to try to whip in a lot of crosses to try to cause problems for our defense. If Demey and O'Halley or actually Plumter can stay really composed and focused for the entire 90 minutes against Canada, rather against Ireland, I think that is where we have our best chance of getting all 3 points, and hopefully the ladies can really come through for us, and we can qualify out of this very, very difficult World Cup group.
All right, Ayoti, you couldn't have given a much more, intense and clear and, precise assessment about these upcoming games. Thank you very much. I know it's quite early over there, and thank you very much for joining us on the weekend show. And we will be coming. I'm more than certain I'll bring you back on just for us to, talk about the wrap-up. I would hope that we would qualify into the next round. Once we do that, we'll bring you back on for another fair assessment on how we would fare in the knockout stages. Even if we don't, we'll still bring you back on just to assess, what could have been done better and how do we move forward, practically in the in women's football with all the shenanigans going on back home. Well, thank you very much, IRT. Thank you for joining us on the weekend show.
For having me here, Thank you.
All right then. Well, there you have it. We're accessing the Super Falcons' chances and previewing what they've been able to do so far in the FIFA Women's World Cup that kickstarted a couple of days ago. While the Super Falcons will still be facing counterparts Australia and Ireland in the coming games, as their first game ended in a goalless draw. We'll be expecting back Alima to Ainde and Rashidat Ajibade for the Match Day 2 and Match Day 3. Well, it's Ayo Adams, and I'll be seeing you same time next week. Bye-bye for now.